Good morning, everyone. It is 8:30 and we're just gonna give everyone just a couple more minutes because we've got a few that are still joining. So in a couple minutes, we will get started. All right. Well, we've got about a couple minutes after 8:30, so we'll still have a few joining us, but welcome everyone to this morning's training. We're looking really forward to it. We have quite a few people, so that's exciting. So I'm Kim Ludwig. I am one of the presenters today for the Windmills training entitled Harness the Power of Inclusion, in which derives from a windmills training, of course, but and today's training is going to be facilitated by the South Dakota Division of Rehabilitation Services, the Sioux Falls Business Resource Network, and the Workforce Diversity Network of the Black Hills. And the trainers today will be myself, Vicki Stewart with the Business Resource Network. Vicki, are you up on the screen?
I am.
Okay. And then Katie Griffiths with the Workforce Diversity Network of the Black Hills. Katie, are you up?
Yep. Good morning, everybody. Bright and early on the western side of the state.
Yeah, we've got a couple of different time zones, so appreciate everyone joining us this morning, especially those on the western part of the state. So just a little bit about the Windmills training. It is a disability awareness training program designed to change the attitudinal barriers and create a new perspective on the skills and abilities of individuals. There are a series of interactive training modules within Windmills in which participants like yourselves have the opportunity just to really interact with each other along with us as the trainers to learn the skills, the knowledge, and the tools to create more of an inclusive workplace where all employees can thrive. So just a little bit about the Windmills. I am going to share my screen. We've got just a little brief PowerPoint. So just a moment as I get that up on the screen here. Right, can everyone see my PowerPoint okay? Okay, perfect. So before we get started, I just want to go over a few housekeeping items just real quickly. First of all, I want to acknowledge Julie Pollock as our interpreter today. So appreciate her being available to provide interpreting services. So thanks, Julie. The training also has the availability of closed captioning, and please see the chat box for the link to access that, which I provided. Also, the training is being recorded, And then following today's training, there will be an evaluation survey, which I will make the link available towards the end of the training. And for those of you who need a certificate of attendance, please be sure to complete the evaluation to show that you participated. So I will complete a certificate of attendance for those that are requesting one. Also, since we have several participants in this training, just make sure to have your videos off unless otherwise asked to. We're going to actually be doing a couple of breakout sessions. So during that time, please put your videos on if possible. And then otherwise, when you are just asked to visit or speak with us, just unmute yourselves. And again, we would love to hear from you during the training. So if you have any comments or questions, please use the chat box feature to interact with us or with others. And then if you encounter any technical difficulties, just use the chat box and then just be sure to message me directly. So I will be monitoring that. With that, let's get started with our training today. Vicki, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Kim, and good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Today's training is intended for general educational purposes only. It is being recorded and it will be made available on the Division of Rehabilitation Services, Business Resource Network, and Workforce Diversity Network of the Black Hills websites. We will be examining stereotypes associated with common disabilities and our emotional reactions to them. It will also enhance your understanding how an individual's prior perception of a disability can keep successful applicants with disabilities from being hired. Now I will give Kim a minute to switch the display on the screen.
Yes, just be patient with me. I'm navigating through different documents here. So one moment. Okay, can you see the document okay?
Yes. Now we are going to do a short activity where all of you will have the opportunity to participate. On the screen, Kim has displayed 4 disabilities for your viewing. They are quadriplegia, blindness, visual impairment, hearing loss, deafness, and clinical depression. Now we ask for each of you to choose from these 4 disabilities, one disability to have. And that is the reason for the yes on the side of the table. Then you will be choosing one disability not to have, and that is the reason for the no on the side of the table. Keep in mind that there is no right or wrong decision with this activity. Next, we are going to have all of you go into breakout rooms to discuss with one another the reasons why you selected the one disability to have. You will have about 7 minutes to discuss this, and we'll then come back together as a large group to share those responses. When you get into the breakout rooms, we ask for one individual to volunteer to lead the discussion and take notes of what was discussed in case your group is called upon to share responses when we're back. Please also note the number of your group when you go into the breakout sessions. All right, I think we are ready to go into our breakout rooms. And again, you'll have about 7 minutes. It may take a little time for everyone to get in the groups with such a large number of attendees today, so please bear with us.
and staying impaired. So I just thought clinical depression would be easier to deal with. Okay, Deb, thanks. And Cindy, we'll go back to you for your yes. Can you hear me better now?
Okay, looks like we've got people starting to come back into the large group from our breakout session. So again, feel free to put your videos off unless you are called upon to share some of the discussions that took place in your groups. So got about 15 seconds left for the group to come back to the large group. So
Oh,
all right. I believe everybody should be getting or is back in our large groups. So hopefully there wasn't too much of a headache with the breakout groups. Kind of honestly, first time I've assigned breakout rooms. So Vicki, I will turn it back over to you.
And we don't hear you, Vicki.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. Hopefully you had some great discussions in your breakout rooms. And now I'm going to call upon various groups and just get some feedback from you, from your leader, as to what disability your group members chose to have. So I think we'll go ahead and get started, and I'm just randomly going to call on group number 5. If the leader from that group would unmute, that would be great.
This is Jessica from Sioux Falls. I was in group 5. I'm not sure if we had maybe some audio problems, but we weren't able to have a discussion. I said that I would pick probably the hearing loss or deafness if I had to have a disability, just because of all the services and accommodations that I think are fairly common and available. And then if for the no, I'd pick the quadriplegia. Just I feel like that's the most limiting and would not be a good time.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. And just for now, for the large group, we're just going to focus on the yeses, which disability you would choose to have. And then we're going to go into breakout sessions again later and discuss the no's. So I will go ahead and call on another group. How about number 10? Would the leader from that group unmute, please?
I don't know if I was the leader or not, this is Luann. And for our group, the yeses, there were 3 yeses that would be the clinical depression. And then 2 yes that went with hearing loss and deafness. 1 that was, I believe, the blindness. And the reason we did that just was because the amount of work that's being done in those areas already. So that's a little bit from our group. If others want to add in, they can.
I had you cut out a little bit.
So did you hear when I said there were 3 of us out of 6 in the group that had said clinical depression that they would, based on the amount of treatment?
Okay.
And then there were 2 that said hearing loss, deafness, I believe, out of the 6 of us. Again, because of both some having hearing loss and deafness and being able to deal with it, plus the available services that are currently there.
Okay, great. And did you say 1 person chose blindness as well?
I believe so. That
Okay.
was, yeah.
Do you remember the reason for that one? Why they chose that?
I do not. So if there's someone else in the group who's listening, please speak up.
Yeah, hi Vicki, it's Ron. It was me because I work with the blind and visually impaired already, and I know what kind of services are available and the technology. So to
Okay,
me, that would be easier.
sure. Thank you very much for sharing, you guys.
Thanks, Ron, for speaking up.
Okay, now I'm going to call on group number 14. Would the leader of that group unmute, please?
Hi, I'm Vicki Nelson, and I was the leader of group 14. And we had 5 of us in our group that were able to unmute ourselves. And we had quite a variety. It was quite different in each category. 2 out of 5 thought depression would be what they would prefer if they had to deal with a disability, and mainly because there is a lot of treatment options available today, and there would be hope to getting better. But again, we also talked about severity of each one of these and how it would differ for each of us. 2 of us said yes for quadriplegia, and the reason for that, no mental or emotional or cognitive issues with that disability. You would be you. And then 1 individual said yes for visual. Again, the cognitive portion or piece of that disability and all of the services that are available to a person with a visual impairment.
Okay, great. Thank you, Vicki.
Mhm.
And I think we have time for 1 more group. So I will go ahead and call on group number 7.
Our most preferred disability, well, we were split, I guess. Clinical depression, because of the various treatment options, and then hearing impairment due to the technology that's available to assist.
Okay. Great. Thank you all so much for those answers and for sharing your responses. I am now going to turn it over to Katie.
Thank you, Vicki. So some of you have already had some of the discussions about what disability you would not like to have, but we're going to go back in the breakout rooms for another 7 minutes and have further discussions about the disability you would least like to have and the reasons why. So we'll go ahead and Kim will put us in those breakout rooms again, and we'll see you back in just a little bit.
This is Kim, and as I am opening up all the breakout rooms again, just quick reminder, just please be sure just to unmute yourselves to just have that discussion. So again, just bear with us as if there's any hiccup with the technology in the breakout rooms. So, all right. Right, we've got about 30 seconds left for the breakout sessions and for everybody to kind of get back to joining us in the large group. Okay, Katie, about 5 seconds left.
Okay. So we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna call on some of the groups. We'll ask for the person who took the notes and kind of led the group to respond to know why you wouldn't want to have the disability. So we'll go ahead with group number 3. Can you talk a little bit about what your group discussed and which disabilities you would absolutely not want to have?
Okay, I'm Lisa Merchant, and our group, most of us chose visual impairment for the one that we would least be comfortable with, and a lot of it is just scary, I think. Scary and fear and dependence on someone, and we recognize that there are good services out there, but we just aren't as familiar with those services for visual impairment. So maybe it's because it's the one we know least about or are least familiar with.
Good discussion. Good answer. How about group number 6? Which disability did you least want to have?
Hi, this is Julie from Aberdeen Aspire. I don't know if we were having technical difficulties or because when we broke out the second time, there like not everybody came, but one of the group members and I that talked on the first one, we kind of talked about both. So like her and I both agreed that quadriplegia would be the one that we would least want to have, just because to us, it seems to pose more challenges for mobility, accessibility, just with businesses. And then of course, with your everyday, your daily living activities. And both of us are mobile and like to walk and I just feel like it would pose more challenges than some of the others would.
Good discussion. Sorry you had those technical difficulties. Okay, let's go to another group. How about group number 9? What was your discussion and which disabilities would you least like to have?
Hi, this is Rhonda Erickson, and of the group, 4 individuals identified quadriplegia as the disability that they would least like to have just because of the limitation of movement. And one person identified that since she has kids, she would really miss that that closeness and physical interaction with her kids. One person did identify depression, and because of the fact that it's an invisible disability and people just don't have the understanding of how debilitating that can be. And then one person picked blindness just because that person was a visual learner and as a people watcher. So that would be a big loss to their day.
Good discussion. How about group 17? What did you discuss and what was the disability you would least like to have?
Yeah, so this is Bridget. There were only 3 of us that came back into the group the second time around, so we may not have all the opinions, but the 3 of us did choose the quadriplegic, and the main reason I think we chose it is probably number 1, because we don't understand all the resources that are available for it, where individuals within our group understood some of the resources that are available for the hearing and the visual impaired. So some of it's an understanding process and knowing that, we see it as having to rely on others and dependability on others. But we also talked about in some of these scenarios, like that particular option is how often is that paired with something like a clinical depression? You know, and wondering what that looks like. But anyhow, it was a good discussion, and more the reason for the one we picked is the lack of understanding.
Good discussion. Thank you. So when we look at the no answers, it's filled with a lot of negativity, like, well, especially quadriplegic, the things that you wouldn't be able to do, the fears around it. A lot of what we see in the category of the disability we wouldn't want to have is we're unfamiliar with it. We haven't been exposed to it. We don't know somebody that has it. And then we look at the yes categories, and those are positive. We know how far that we've come with different accommodations. We know somebody who has that disability, so we see them as able to do everything they'd like to do. So when we compare the two, these are the same disabilities with two completely different answers, neither right or wrong, but just a lot of it comes down to what we're exposed to and what we know about the disability. Because on one hand, we can find somebody that is quadriplegic that's doing really well. I know somebody who is an engineer. He has an amazing outgoing personality. He has his van that he drives. He's involved in all kinds of the community activities. But on the other hand, we could find somebody who's quadriplegic who's really frustrated and isn't able to go and doesn't have that independence. So none of the answers are right or wrong. A lot of it is about being exposed to those different disabilities. And for so long, people with disabilities were segregated. And so that's why we find a lot of fear around different disabilities. It's just because people haven't been exposed to it. They don't know somebody with that disability. And when we talk about the hidden disabilities like clinical depression, it is hidden. So we don't even know what somebody might be going through or how hard it is for them to get through their daily activities. And it may look easy, but it's not. So neither answer is right or wrong, but it really helps us discover why we feel about different disabilities the way we do, and discovers how those prejudices sometimes come about. So I'm going to turn it back over to Vicki, and she's going to talk about some of the other responses we have.
Right. Thank you, Katie. The responses we have on the screen are not about people with disabilities, but our reactions to them. While it is not wrong to react to disabilities, these reactions can affect the decisions we make about people with disabilities. People made their decisions based on stereotypes. The difficulty comes when our stereotypes are based on limited knowledge and experiences, or when they become prejudices. Prejudices are beliefs that are not based on facts we hold about people or places. While there are many reasons why people react to disabilities, we'll review 3 of them. The first, what we do not know about the disability. Second, what we think we know about the disability. And third, pain. First, we will review what we do not know about the disability. With such a wide range of possible disabilities, it would be impossible to be knowledgeable about every type of impairment. And I know for myself, one of the stereotypes that I often encounter is that people just assume because I use a wheelchair, I don't drive. So I will go to a doctor's appointment or something like that, and they usually ask me, do you want me to call you for a ride for you to come pick you up? And I'll say, nope, I have my car right outside. So there's definitely stereotypes out there. Another one that I often encounter is because I use a wheelchair, people think that I have a cognitive disability as well. And of course, that's not always the case. Much of what we think we know about disabilities may be years old and no longer up-to-date information. The Americans with Disabilities Act requires that when the disability is a valid issue to be considered in an employment situation, the employer is required to consider only the best available objective information to decide. And now I'll turn it back over to Katie.
Thank you, Vicki. We're going to talk a little bit now about what we assume. So a lot of times people assume, just as Vicki was saying, what people can and cannot do. And especially when we come to the employment side of disabilities. And we'll find perhaps that somebody was hired and again, they use a chair like Vicki. So this person that was hired did a really good job as a receptionist, but and they were comfortable with that position. They were outgoing, they were good with people. So then they think that that's the perfect job for somebody who uses a chair, but that might not be the case. It probably isn't the case, because somebody else who uses a chair might not like to be out with the public. They might be really good with numbers and would be great in accounting or a different part of the company. And therefore, the person who is hired at that entry level position, maybe as a receptionist, doesn't get promoted. And by the ADA standards, that's discrimination, and that can cause a big problem for them. And it also causes people to stay in low paying positions that don't get promoted. So my disability is blindness, visual impairment. And the thing that people think about blindness is everybody's in darkness. And I always say only 5% of us are in darkness. The rest of us have some vision. I'm really good with being out with people, where somebody else might be much better suited to be doing a different type of job. We all have our individual talents, and that's the same for people with disabilities. Everybody has the things they're really good at and the things that that's not their forte, and that's not where they shine. So we need to look at the individual, not the disability, and make that good match, especially in the hiring, and allow that person to be able to move up through the company. The next thing we'll look at and review is pain. And that again comes from people's fear. That was in some of the answers. We feel sorry for them, where would be really frightening for us not to be able to see, to be dependent on other people, or we feel like that's what they would be dependent. Somebody with quadriplegic blindness would be very dependent on people to do things for them. So when the employer looks at that again and looks at the pain and doesn't look at the person and what their abilities are and what their strengths are, and is afraid of that disability, that's when a lot of times, especially if somebody acquires a disability while already working and they're ready to come back, maybe they had a really bad accident and now they use a chair. In my case, I lost my vision. And they think, well, there's no way they could do the job they were doing, so they let them go. And of course, we know that with the ADA, that would be a huge discrimination. And again, it's their fear that they feel like, well, I couldn't do the job if I had this disability, so how could this person do the job? And they're, again, if they do stay, they're placed in a different position that's below their level of ability and not promoted. So although we can empathize with people, it's a lot of times our fear of how we would react to having that disability happen to us. And most of the time when you talk to people with disabilities, I mean, it's just part of who they are. It's not about being scared or sad. And for a lot of people who acquire a disability later in life, it leads them to a greater calling than they had before. So those are some of the things we look at, and some of the things that, of course, as employers, we definitely want to be aware of. It's easy to place people in a position where we know that they're going to succeed in those entry-level positions, because we know that it's safe there, they're going to be okay there, they're doing a good job. But the thing is to be able to help people with disabilities reach their full potential and not just be in a job because that's where you feel that would be a safe place for them. We're gonna, I think now, look and go back to, Kim's got a video for us. It is from our Windmills training, and it is from Mr. Penatol, who also has a movie out, The Music Within. If you haven't seen it, it is available to see, but we're gonna see a video from Mr. Pimentel himself, and Kim's going to put that on the screen right now.
Right, can everyone see the screen okay? I'm gonna make the video, it's about 2.5 minutes. I'm gonna make the video full screen, so hopefully you will be able to hear it okay, and I will also play the closed captioning as well.
I'm often asked by employers, what is a really good job for someone who's blind? Or what would a good job be for someone who uses a wheelchair or is deaf? What are the good jobs for people with disabilities? And I've always wondered exactly what to say to the employer. But not too many years ago, I was giving a conference in a large city. And a gentleman who was an executive in human resources raised his hand. And he said, Mr. Pimentel, I've been listening to you, and I want you to know that I, in my own company, have a job that would be perfect for someone in a wheelchair. What should I do? And I thought a minute, and here's what I said. I said, you've got a job that would be perfect for someone in a wheelchair? He said, yes. They could do better? Yes. I said, great. Go to bed early tonight. Wake up early in the morning. Go to a wheelchair place and buy a wheelchair. Bring the chair into your company. Find out who is doing that job in your company. Put them in the wheelchair and watch production go up. He said, what? I said, well, if you've got a job which could be done better by someone in a wheelchair, by all means, put someone in a wheelchair and let them do it. He said, I don't understand. And I said, none of us understand. Here's what we need to know. There are no good jobs for people in wheelchairs, but there are people in wheelchairs that are good for jobs. There are no perfect jobs for people that are blind, but there are people who are blind who are doing a great job. And there's no jobs in your company, no jobs in your city, no jobs in your state for people with disabilities. But there are people with disabilities who should be considered for every job you have. You wouldn't hire someone just because of their race or gender or ethnicity. Don't hire someone just because of the disability. Hire them because they can do the job.
Very powerful video. So essentially what Richard Pimentel is stating is simply hire people with disabilities or without disabilities simply because of what they can do, their skills, abilities, not because of their disability. So with that, hopefully all of you have enjoyed our training this morning, have learned something. If you are interested in contacting us to learn more about additional windmills trainings, or even just to learn more about the Division of Rehabilitation Services, the Business Resource Network, and the Workforce Diversity Network, I'm going to pull up our contact information here. So just bear with me here as I pull up the slide. Okay, can everybody see our contact information okay? All right. Otherwise, this concludes our training, and I am going to put the evaluation survey link in the chat box here. So Vicki, Katie, any final last comments that you would like to say?
I would just, for a couple things to think about as we leave today, could you do your job if you had the disability that you chose? And could you do your job if you had the disability that you didn't choose? Just things to think about. Because we're still us, even if we have that disability. It doesn't really change who we are. We just do it differently. And with technology and accessibility, you're probably able to still do that job. But some things to think about as we leave today.
How about you, Vicki?
Just one last thing, I guess, just to remember too, that just because two people have the same diagnosis or disability does not mean that they're exactly alike. We're all individuals just like everyone else, and we all have different skills and abilities. So really focus on that, what the skills and abilities are, what we can do versus what we can't do.
Okay, thank you. I am getting a couple of comments indicating that the survey, the link is not opening. So what I will do is we will still be sending out an email with follow-up information. So I will send out the email with the link for the survey to all of those that have registered. And then also the recording of the training will be made available as well. So once again, thank you everyone and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.